I want to go back to what you were just saying about researching the female lines and the difficulties that we find in just trying to figure out what did our mothers do, because their last names change. The records aren't as interested in what women did. Is there another way that we can tap into the women in our lines without solid records?
Yes. Yes, there is. I wrote a book, it was several years ago. It's called A Genealogist's Guide to Discovering Your Female Ancestors. And in that book, I break down record sources, or sources, I should say, by those created about women, like the passenger list is created about her. She didn't create it. And those sources created by women. Some of those sources may be needlework, maybe samplers and that kind of thing. Some of it may be letters and diaries. Some of it may be other home sources, recipes and recipe books that can give us clues about our female ancestors' lives.
Let me just mention here that the updated version of that book is called Telling Her Story, A Guide to Researching and Writing About Women of the Past, and it's available on Amazon, and it expands on the previous book. Just wanted to point that out.
So I give ideas for other things, other sources in researching women, plus sources you may not think about. For example, a lot of women in the 19th century, not a lot, but a fair share of women in the 19th century petitioned for divorce. But they never went through with it because their children would be taken away from them. But they went ahead and petitioned, and it created a record. And it created an interesting record that talked about her marriage and why she was petitioning for divorce. So again, that's another area that could need healing for her. Somebody is listening. Somebody gets why I petitioned. I never could file for divorce because my children would be taken away from me, but somebody gets that my husband was beating me, and that's why I filed. So there are a lot of records created about women, or women created themselves, or sources that they created themselves that can give us insight into their lives and where some healing might be needed.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know that a lot of those files aren't yet available online because I mean it takes time to scan them and upload them and transcribe it. So it's not like everything that exists is available on Family Search or on Ancestry, et cetera. Sometimes you have to actually go to their hometown. So I'm sure you've done this. So in your experience, what's it like to actually walk in the footsteps of the ancestors and to touch the documents that has their ink on it?
Well, first of all, I want to say that you can always hire somebody in the locality to look for records. Like this woman I'm working on who was committed to the insane asylum. There are records at the Historical Society in Connecticut. I have to go there in person to look at them, but I had a Zoom meeting with the Historical Society director, and she went through some of the documents, so I know what's there. So you can do a lot long distance, but there is nothing like walking where your ancestors lived. And when I do that, I'm not necessarily going for the records unless there happens to be letters and diaries that I want to see and read in their own words. I'm going to get a sense of the place. Like with my umbilical line, my matrilineal line, which is Irish, fortunately, the house at the time was still standing. It's since had a fire, unfortunately, but I was able to go and walk where my great grandmother lived and touch the building and touch the bricks and everything where she was. And I think that's also healing for us both, because somebody cares. And isn't that really all we want, is to know somebody cares about us? Nobody wants to die and think they won't be remembered. And the further back you go, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, or whatever, who remembers them? You do. Through your research and your writing, you remember them. You honor them. I want to read you a quote. This came from an article by Dr. Judith Rich. And the article, you can Google it, it's called Healing the Wounds of Your Ancestors. And she said, "You are the one who can heal old wounds for your entire lineage, forgive old enemies, shift conditioning and beliefs, release pain that has been held preceding generations captive for centuries. This is the gift you bring to them." So you're the one who can do it.
Yeah, beautiful. What was the name of the person who wrote that again? I wrote down the title, but I didn't catch
Yeah.
the name.
Dr. Judith Rich, RICH, Healing the Wounds of Your Ancestors.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure I'm not the only one who wanted that repeated. Yeah, I again going back to the mothers, the fact that their last names were dropped. Although sometimes they passed it down as a middle name, but for the most part, the women are the ones who are going to be forgotten more than anyone else. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there that nobody wants to be forgotten. And so by us remembering them, even if we don't know their last names, even if we never learn their first names, just acknowledging that they existed and they were part of our existence, I think is tremendously healing. Do you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. And genetically speaking, the mitochondrial DNA does not mutate as much as the other parts of the DNA when it's passed down. And the mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, can only be passed through the female line. So what I inherit as my mtDNA is the same as my grandmother's, my great-grandmother's, my great-great-grandmother's, my great-great, all the way back in that lineage. My memoir, I've written a few books. My memoir, Inheriting the Gordon Hips, was about my search for where did I get these hips? And so I explore the mitochondrial DNA in one of those essays, Inheriting the Gordon Hips, how my DNA, a portion of it, is exactly the same as my ancestor 15 generations ago. There's physical connection. This is not just a line on a pedigree chart. I have the same DNA. I may not have the same DNA as some of my other ancestors because it's mutated so much, but I do for my umbilical line. And it's passed down to my daughter and then to my granddaughters, but it's passed on to the male, but stops. Men cannot pass this on, only women can. So it's an amazing physical connection to our ancestors that most people don't even realize they have.
Wow. Oh my God. I guess I kind of knew that, but I never made the connection that you just drew so clearly. Oh my God, it's just, it's mind blowing thinking of, how this just goes back so far and will continue to go forward. And these are the nameless people. They will forever be nameless. Like I know that my mom's dad, they had the same last name for generations back. Her mother's changes every time they would get married. And these are these nameless women, but wow, I don't even have the words to describe the ripple effect that I'm feeling just talking about this. This is powerful mojo, isn't it?
It is. And I do want to say Catholic cultures, the women in Europe, the women tended to keep their father's last name in legal records. So for example, my Italian ancestors on the passenger list coming over, they're not recorded by their married name, even though they were married at the time. They're recorded with their father's surname. So if you have Spanish, Italian, Catholic cultures where women were recorded by their father's surname in legal records, that opens the door tremendously. But otherwise, Lisa, you're absolutely correct. Most of them, that's the biggest problem, is figuring out the maiden name. And in A Genealogist Guide to Discovering Your Female Ancestors, I address that and techniques for that.
Perfect, perfect. I know on my mother's lineage, the name, the spelling of the name, because it's a really complex, possibly Polish, possibly Prussian. I don't even really know what country it was because the borderlines changed so much, and the spelling of the last name varies so widely that I don't know if I'll ever really know where these women actually originated. So yeah, I've actually got a copy of that book, so I'm going to have to go tap into that and learn a little bit more about what we're talking about. We are so close to out of time. I've just been gabbing because I'm so fascinated by your work. I want to make sure that I mention your website. You've got two. One is the genealogymedium.com, and the other one is sharoncarmack.com. What's the difference between those two sites?
The genealogymedium.com focuses more on my mediumship work and my combination of genealogy and mediumship. SharonCarmack.com is my business website with my husband, and that primarily focuses on genealogy research and our genealogy projects. But they both link to each other. So if you get to one, you can find a link for the other.
Okay, perfect. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Sharon. This has been so interesting. I don't want to let you go. Is there anything that we've left out that you want to make sure that we talk about, or do you feel like we've covered enough?
I think we've covered enough. I just can't stress the importance that if you do nothing else but talk to your relatives about your ancestors, find out who they were from relatives, even that sends out the vibration to them that you're thinking about them, you care about them. That's a good step too. You don't have to do the research. You can just talk to your relatives and find out about your grandparents if they're no longer living, and great grandparents and aunts and uncles. Don't forget the collateral relatives. We call those collateral relatives. Ancestors are the lineage, grandparents, great grandparents, etc. Collaterals are the aunts and uncles and cousins. We all can use healing. So learn as much about your family from talking with your relatives, and the holidays are always a good time for that. But even if it's not around the holidays, you can do it anytime. And at least get started that way and thinking about your ancestors.